I recently moved the AeroGarden farm from the basement up into my upstairs grow room, which means that I need to get it set up again and replanted. So if you're at all curious about the AeroGarden farm, I'm going to be discussing how to set it up, some hints and tips on ensuring a successful harvest, as well as a hack that I wish I'd known years ago and I only just recently found out. If you're new around here, then hi, I'm Kiri. On this channel, we explore all things micro homesteading, from growing indoors hydroponically to growing outdoors in the garden, and other ways that we can become more self-sufficient and reduce our reliance on the grocery store. So when I made the decision to move the AeroGarden farm from the basement to upstairs here in my new grow room, it meant I had to take the entire thing apart, which is a pain in the butt for me, but it means that I can actually show you guys how to set it up. And then I'm gonna get it replanted with some things that I don't wanna have to go to the grocery store for this winter. So we'll get these all set up and growing and save some money. So this is the main unit. It's already assembled, like the frame is assembled, so I'm not gonna go through that because I did it years ago. So now that I've got it upstairs and in place, this is where it's going to stay. We need to get the grow bowls put back in on the racks. We need to reconnect the pump and the water meter. We're going to have to adjust the lights and reset what we have here on the display because that is not the right time and the water is definitely not full. So we'll get that all sorted in a minute. So the first thing that we're gonna do is get these grow bowls in place. This is actually one of the things that I love about the farm is the fact that you have two different grow bowls, which means you can run different nutrients, different acidity. It can be completely different between the two sections. Here we have the grow deck. This, you can pour water in through this hole. These are all the individual holes. They have a little tiny nozzle in each one where the water is going to come out of. You need to make sure that those don't get clogged. So here we have the pump and the water sensor. It's important that it faces with the ridge facing forwards, but more importantly is this little piece if you're putting it together. So it actually has one side that says up and the other side says down. The thing that most people screw up is having the up facing down and the down facing up. So once you have the up at the top, it fits in pretty easily. You can see it doesn't go in any other way, so we can pop it in. Just make sure that it goes in. And then once it's in there, we can go ahead and make sure that we get it on properly. So with that done, we can go and set the grow bowl onto the track. It has the ridges in the base that fits securely on, which we want considering it's going to be full of water. So this is an important piece where your pump and your water level meters are going to fit into. Make sure, as it says on the back, that you do not submerge it. I like to keep mine tucked away at the back so that it is out of the way, and make sure that you're putting the left into the left and the right into the right, or it's going to screw things up when you start working with your display. Find the pump, and then this is the left side, so we will put that into the pump meter. And then we take the water level one and we pop it, whoops, into there. Get the other grow bowl in there again with the water sensors facing the back, and making sure that the float is in there facing the correct way. So we'll get this put in for the right side of the pump and the right side of the water meter. Want to make sure the pump cord fits into the little slot, otherwise it can be a little difficult to get the grow decks on, and we can fit the grow decks on top. Then we'll get the other grow deck on top here. Make sure it's snugly in.
I go click on more options and then choose Wi-Fi. Click on connect to Wi-Fi, click next, wait for it to find your network. I'll click on my one. Then you're going to have to type in your password and wait for it to connect. Click on quick plant. This will get the garden started. Click next. It's going to ask you what to make sure your time is correct. Mine wasn't, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust that. Click OK, confirm that the settings are correct, and I'm going to click grow anything. It'll depend on what you're doing. Then click next, and it's going to have you choose which one is most like it. So mine is tomatoes on this side. Then it just gives you an idea of how long the lights are going to be on for, and you can adjust the time. I want mine to come on at about 6 a.m., so I'm just going to go ahead and change that and put the time down, which will also change the off time. Confirm the settings are correct. going to walk you through actually setting it up, but we've already put the water in, so we don't need to worry about that right now. But it'll take you through the water, doing your seed pods, and putting the plant food. So we're going to click OK, and then we need to do it for the other side, which is going to have the peppers in it. So again, I'm going to click on switch to the right side, then quick plant, next, and I'm going to go through, because I've already adjusted the time, this will be okay. Click on Grow Anything, and I'm going to select peppers because I already did the other side is tomatoes. And I'll adjust this one to come on at 6 a.m. as well, just so they're at the same time. And then we're good. And we'll click next, and we're pretty much done. So I noticed that the water levels were off, and I couldn't figure out why. And then I saw that I hadn't even attached the cables into the water meter and the pump. So that's probably where that issue came from. So I'm going to put those in now. And oh, look, the pump's working. You can tell at the top, if you open that, the water comes out. So that's a good way to check if your pump is good. Now on the screen, we can see whether I go left or right. They're both showing as full.
All right, so the unit is up and running. Now we need to talk about what we're going to plant in it and some of the things around planting. You may have gotten pods that look like this with your new AeroGarden, or maybe you just buy them. These are the pre-seeded pods. So they already come with the top on, the sponge is already in there, and the seeds are already in here. Now the seeds, I'm assuming, are put in when this is kind of moist and then it's dried out, so they're stuck in there. That said, sometimes if your pods do not germinate, it's possible that the seeds have been jostled out and then there's nothing in there to grow. From the website, it says you can contact them. They do have a guaranteed growth. If your pods are not growing, contact them, and I believe they send you replacements. I haven't had this issue, but it's because I grow mine a little bit differently. I buy my basket separately in like a bulk bag from Amazon. I'll put the link down in the description to the ones that I get. And the reason I do this is I then also buy my sponges in bulk. These are essentially the Grow Anything. You can get that as a kit, I think, but I just buy the bigger bags because I go through a lot. And then what you can do is you're going to put your own sponge in there, put your own seeds in there. These things are key. These are the old ones, so they have to be ironed on. I believe there's new ones that are actually stickers, which make your life a whole lot easier. And then you attach that to the top. This is so important. One of the biggest frustrations you can run into when you're growing hydroponically is getting algae. To some degree, it's going to be very hard to avoid. At some point, you're probably going to deal with it. I have dealt with it many times. But what it comes down to is in any hydroponic environment, there's going to be 3 things that are going to contribute to algae: water, nutrients, and light. And when you're growing hydroponically, we have all 3 of those. So the one lever that you can pull to try and control the algae situation is to reduce the amount of light. And that's where these tops come in. As well, if you are not using all the holes, and you should not be using all the holes in your AeroGarden, which can be a bit of a strange to newbies. There's a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, you should not be using all the holes. These are the AeroGarden brand hole covers. You do not need these, 100%. I just like them. They were handy. You can use golf balls. I've seen a lot of people do that. Or basically you just need to block the light from getting into any holes you're not using. So whatever works, you do you. I will put the link to these below though. This is why I haven't run into the issues with not having seeds, because I put the seeds in myself. And so far I haven't screwed that up. One of the things I wanted to grow was some of these Metallica tomatoes. I will try and put a picture here of the one that I grew. I love them. They are a dwarf variety. So that is one of the important things you're going to have to keep in mind if you are growing it with your own seeds. You want to make sure that you're not going to grow some behemoth that's going to grow all over the place. I did that with peas once. It was a disaster. So make sure that you're using seeds that are going to be appropriate to the unit and the grow height within your unit. This one is Aerogarden Farm Plus, so it has about 2 feet of grow height. In hindsight, I wish I had gotten the Plus XL, so I had the full 3 feet, but you can't go back in time. So I have these dwarf ones. And dwarf is another thing you have to be a little bit careful of. I have a dwarf orange hat tomato from Baker Creek Heirloom Seeds, and they grow to about 9 inches, the entire plant. So that's something that I'll typically grow in my AeroGarden sprout, or something that doesn't have a huge amount of height. There's some dwarf tomatoes that can grow to 1 foot, 2 feet, 3 feet. If you consider that an indeterminate tomato can grow to 14 feet high. 3 feet is still kind of dwarf. But if you have the plus, 3 feet ain't gonna work. We have to make sure that we are putting the right size for the environment that we have. Now, you can also prune, and that is going to help. But especially if you're using determinates, which is ideally what is more suited to an AeroGarden, they are going to grow to a determined height, and they are going, so you don't want to be pruning too much and then pruning off all the flower sets. So it's a balancing game, but try the ones you have. If it doesn't work, try something else next time. It's all really just a learning experience, and you've got to find out what works best for you and your hydroponic system, or if it's outside your garden. For peppers and tomatoes, I like to put in 2 seeds, and then you thin one. I'm terrible at thinning. I want to always give everything a chance, and this is how I end up overseeded all the time. So I'm going to take my 2 seeds. I am going to pop them into the hole in there, and then we'll get this settled into the basket. It's important to make sure that the sponge goes all the way to the bottom. If it doesn't, then there's a good chance it's not going to get the water all the way up, and then nothing will sprout. You also just want to keep an eye on it at first. Sometimes I find that certain ones, they get wet to about here and the top doesn't. Usually what I'll do is carefully pour some water over the top so that it kind of just helps that wicking effect. But sometimes you just get a bunk sponge, and I just switch it out for a new one. Then you will take the cover, you will put that on top. The domes are going to stay on until you might see some condensation happening inside the dome. That is okay. You're going to leave the domes on until the plants start getting close to the top. You don't want them to start to touch, because it can almost end up working like a magnifying glass and it can burn your leaves. So keep an eye. We want them to grow tall in here, but not too tall. The other thing that is important to remember is to write down, if you are using the Grow Anything, write down what's on it. You're going to think that you're going to remember what you've planted. You're not going to remember what you planted eventually. Well, I mean, unless you've got a better memory than me. But still, just go ahead and write it down so you know what variety it is. And I need a pen. When you are writing on them, use an ink pen, not one of those marker pens. I did that. Water got on. It was a disaster. So sometimes people ask if they need to remove these as the plant grows. The answer is no, because we want to keep the light out so we don't get the algae. But people worry that the plants will not be able to grow through this. There are slits in these, and trust me, the plant stems are strong. Some of them, if they've been in there for a while, my tomato stems, like definitely basil things, peppers for sure, end up with like woody stems. You can barely get them out. So they will come through this. Do not worry. Found my iron. I got that heating up. But we will get these all organized first. So we have the Metallica tomato. I'm also going to try growing some of these Chinese strength eggplants. While I am not a huge eggplant fan, these ones are kind of cool. They're thinner. I'm hoping they have a lot less seeds in them. I don't know, the seeds of the eggplant kind of freak me out. I have no idea why, but they do. So I'm going to try these ones. And for the eggplant, I'm going to do 2 seeds and then thin down to whichever one looks the strongest. Scout's honor, I promise I'm actually going to thin it this time, because I do not want this getting overgrown. And the nice thing about all of these is that they are self-pollinating, which means you do not need to do anything to get them to have flowers and then fruit. You can do stuff to increase your chances. So if you gently come in and just bang the stem or give it a very gentle shake, the thing that makes these self-pollinating is that they have the male and the female parts in the same flower. So essentially everything is there. We just need to make sure they come into contact with each other. Thus, the gentle shaking. And also having a fan so that you have air circulation, the breeze, and that can help move things around, which will also help with that. Now that said, I have completely neglected these before and had beautiful fruit on it. That said, if you're involving yourself and making sure that if you're doing some things to increase the chances of pollination, you're probably going to get more, though you will get something no matter what. So I only have 2 more things that I'm going to get planted, which may seem crazy because there are 24 holes behind me in this AeroGarden farm, but because these are big plants, I'm only going to do 2 per side, which I think is one of the things that throws people off so much when they're buying the AeroGardens, is they think they have 6, or well, in the case of the sprout, 3 or 6 in the harvest, and I think the bounties get up to 9, or in the case of the farm, 24. You can push things and you can put more in and play around with it yourself to see which you prefer, but you want to make sure they've got space. These things are going to put down big roots as well, which you may want to do some root trimming. I am going to be doing a future video with a root trimming experiment showing whether root trimming has any detrimental effects or anything like that. I have never root trimmed before. That said, I have also had roots in the pump. I want to play around with it though, do the experiment to see if it's something that I want to incorporate into how I do things hydroponically. A personal preference. There are people that swear by root trimming, and then there's other people like myself that have never root trimmed. And I've grown successfully for 4 or 5 years now. Next, I'm going to be putting in one of these block peppers. These are actually a pepper from Russia. They are a sweet pepper. I just thought they were pretty, and I wanted some bright colors for during the winter. I also didn't get a lot of seeds in the package, so I wanted to be able to save some seeds from some of these peppers because I don't have to worry about cross-pollination inside because there's no pollinators. So it's also a good way to save seeds over the winter and to not have to go buy sweet peppers at the store, because peppers are part of the dirty dozen. They're actually one of the worst. I think it was like over 100 pesticides on some of them, and I don't want any of that. And lastly, I need me some jalapenos for some jalapeno poppers. This is probably, for the hot peppers, this is probably one of the ones I use the most. I am such a suck when it comes to peppers in terms of heat. My son is always making fun of me because I can't handle a hot pepper, but jalapenos I can handle. So these are again from Baker Creek. The ones that are actually in here now are ones that I saved myself. I just saved the package and kept putting them in. 2 seeds always. If you only put in 1 seed, you only have 1 chance at having it germinate. With having 2 in there, you increase your chances. That said, anytime I put in 2, they both germinate. If I put in 1, it's like hit or miss. So I just put in 2. If you're running really low on seeds, then you could always try 1, and then if that doesn't take, try another one. If you want to know about seed saving, I will link my video up above to how I do that. All right, so we have them already. That is the last one. Like I said, these are the old ones, so I have to use the iron, which is not ideal. Be very careful. And I'm just gonna put that on top and move it around. The iron wasn't on, so we're gonna have to wait a second. All right, so the iron is actually heated up this time. This makes for a much more efficient way of doing things. So you're gonna wanna make sure that it attaches properly all around the edge. I like to wiggle it for a second, and then I just like to check the edge to make sure it's secure, and that one is, so we'll pop it down. Just be careful when you're picking these up and putting these down if you're using the Grow Anything pods, because the seeds are not adhered in like they are in the pre-seeded ones. Like these ones, you can be pretty confident holding them upside down, though there's no good reason to actually do this except to show you that they're pretty much in there. So just be much more careful with this, because these seeds will fall out. You don't want to be trying to put the seed back in after you've got the sticker attached to the top, because that's just gonna be a pain in the butt. I'm gonna need a new one. I screwed that one up. Because I don't have any more of these, I'm gonna have to reuse that eggplant one I ripped off, and we're gonna Frankenstein it on. So I have the lid on there. That is the jalapenos. I'm gonna keep the peppers in this side because I did say this was set up as a pepper system. So I'm gonna probably stick one there, and I think I'm gonna put the other one in this hole. So we have the block pepper. I'm gonna pop him in here, make sure they are snugly down. And now we can turn our attention over to the tomato and eggplant side. And we'll pop him back here. And last but not least, our somewhat mangled Chinese eggplant. And we'll stick him over here. Make sure that you're pushing them down snugly to make sure that they are clicked in. So then what I'll do is start covering the rest of the holes. I'm gonna have to go find the rest of my hole covers, and then we'll make sure that we don't have any more light in there. So I just noticed that this one at the back is not actually got any water coming out of it. If you look at some of the other ones in there, you can see the water coming through. And I noticed when I felt behind, the lid is not, the grow deck is not down properly. This one is. I can feel that there's no gap. So we're just gonna come in and see. And it's because the cord has come out of where it needs to be settled. We're now on the road to actually having some peppers and some tomatoes and some eggplants growing this winter. But I promise to reveal to you guys the thing that I wish I had known years ago when I first started using my AeroGarden farm. Maybe you know this, maybe you don't. I did not. And it happened so innocently when I was setting up the farm. There at the ends of these, right here, there is a little cabinet that you can put things in. And I put something in there and forgot about it and didn't realize until very recently. So let me hopefully help save you guys some trouble, because it makes life so much easier. Here's the cabinet. So I had some grow domes in there that are handy. And then there's this. So this is the hack. You go here and you go to more options. There's this handy dandy thing here that says drain garden. Once you go into that, it will walk you through the whole process of taking this, of coming over to here, opening this, which we know is going to start squirting water everywhere, so I'm not going to do it right now. You're then going to take this hose and attach it in here, and then have the other end go into a bucket, and then you can take that into the bathroom or wherever and dump it. You're not going to disturb any of your plant, and then you can come back and refill it with clean water. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to take this deck out, balance it somewhere because there's masses of roots hanging down, then try and lift the grow bowl up here with the water, wobble all the way to the bathroom without hopefully dumping it on the floor, to then come back and reset it up. So don't lose the hose. That's my secret. So if you already knew about draining the garden and using the hose, then let me know down below, because I sure missed the memo on that one. Which brings me to cleaning your AeroGarden farm. Very daunting your first time if you're not sure what to do. I have my video over here where I actually talk about how I go about cleaning my AeroGarden farm. There's also my playlist up here, which will go into all things AeroGarden. Until next time, don't forget to enjoy the little things and go out there and make food grow. Bye guys.